a WFSB Plus original. This is the Capitol Rundown.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for streaming with us on WFSB Plus. I'm Kara Sundlin. Welcome to the Capitol Rundown. This is where we break down the politics from both sides of the aisle affecting your life here in Connecticut. We have former Republican House Leader Themis Klarides and Democratic strategist Jimmy Tickey. And thank you both for being here.
Yeah, always happy to be here.
Yes.
So much is happening. This is why we decided to start bringing you this show. It seems like every day there is something going on, and we want to take you beyond the social media posts, the rants, try to get the insider's perspective. So we're starting with what's been happening with President Trump and let's call it the text leak. And this is still going on, I will tell you, as we're streaming right now, and the different opinions. We know The Atlantic has put out more of the conversation where actual planes were issued, planes and emojis about actual rockets going off, as the Trump administration is sort of, I guess, playing it that this is no big deal. Nothing was really revealed that was sensitive information. I want to start with you as the Republican, Themis. What do you think about using a messaging app like Signal, which I understand you actually have on your phone as well, for top secret things like this?
My bigger issue here is, why are they using Signal? I've heard that other administrations have used it at different times. I know it's encrypted end to end. We've heard all those words being used, and as you mentioned, I have it on my phone because my computer person is like, listen, it's really not safe to be texting the things you text. You know, when I was in the legislature and important information, you need to use a different level. Now, that's me. That's little me, Themis Klarides in Connecticut. I can't imagine on a high level of national and international security that would be okay. That's my bigger problem with that. I think the whole thing needs to be investigated, whether it's, we've heard Republicans and Democrats come out today saying whether it's the Pentagon or the Armed Forces Committee or the FBI or somebody has to look into why this happened and how this happened.
Do you think there needs to be a full investigation? And we have a White House saying that there's no real issue, let's just move on. Do you think, in fact, you need to look at this more?
I think there needs to be whatever investigation is necessary to get to the bottom of why it happened. I mean, listen, could it have been a mistake? Yes. I don't really understand that. But if it was, we've clearly seen no real ramifications to it. I mean, do people make mistakes? They do. We're human beings. We make mistakes. But, I mean, I think we really need to understand, was it Waltz, was it a staffer? I mean, he's claiming it was him. At first they said it was a staffer. I think, that has to be kind of cleared up.
Yeah.
And then, is that the most safe and secure way to communicate? We all understand that these people are all over the country and all over the world sometimes, and you can't get everybody in a room, in a skiff. You can't do that all the time. But what is the safest way and the most secure way? Because this is important information. I mean, they're trying to differentiate between sensitive versus, confidential versus, what's the word that they're using? I mean, either
Attack
way,
plan, war
but
plan.
Either way, nobody is saying it wasn't highly sensitive information that was being put forth in that group text.
Yeah. Jimmy?
Yes. So, there might be conversations that you don't want to see the light of day, but they could as you're a government official. It might be. And so that's a reason to use Signal if you want to talk about the day-to-day, maybe a legislative process or a strategy to get to a legislative process. But this is about national security. This is about some of the highest ranking individuals in the government, both the chief of staff to the president, the vice president, the secretary of defense, the secretary of state, as well as others, talking about weapons, timing, about a strike prior to it happening. And so Signal is not the place to discuss war plans, a strike with the timing, with the weapons used and individuals on there that also they've yet to release their names because it included some CIA folks that are working on this very topic. So when you want to talk about these sort of sensitive national security types of efforts that are classified, that are very sensitive, there's ways to do that. You can have people go into a skiff, which is no matter where you are in the world, there's a place to enter into a safe, secure place to talk about strategy, to talk about how you're going to go about these sort of strikes. You don't drop war plans or strike plans in a group chat. That's bad enough. And then the chat included a member of the press who they've yet to be able to say how this person got added or who added him, but that member of the press was very responsible in then removing himself from the chat. And as you've said, the White House has really been downplaying this. As we were just walking out here, a Republican congressman from Nebraska even said the White House is in denial. They're in a bit of a firestorm now, and they need to address this better than they have, because this really poses a national security risk to release the plans that our country has for a strike prior to it happening.
I was reading some of the newspapers from around the world saying basically the criticism from other countries that this is amateurish, and making that other countries are now starting to have meetings of like, what do we do if the United States is unsecured like that? Themis, Republicans, do you think they need to acknowledge at all that this is more than just a mistake and that changes need to happen?
Well, I think that people are very forgiving and understanding of things happening, going, whether you call it a mistake or, you know, some sort of systemic problem. Which it would seem to me, if they all thought it was fine to communicate that way, then there maybe is a systemic problem in how they're communicating. But Mr. Waltz has already acknowledged that he's the one that put him on the text. Now, yesterday, they said it was a staffer. So I don't know if one is covering for the other. I don't know. I don't think any of us know where that is right now. But I think acknowledging that it was a problem, and we're going to do everything we can to fix it. That's what people want to hear.
Right.
There is a problem. We want to do everything we can to fix it. Now, I mean, I heard the president's press secretary on the way up here just going, you know, on and on and on and on about, and she's doing her job, I get that, but you can't deny something happened, and you can't deny that it could have had very serious ramifications. So why don't we just say, all right, we learned a lot. We made a mistake. Something happened here. We're going to find out what the mistake was, because we don't even know what the mistake was, right? We don't know how it got to where it got. We want to know how that happened in the first place, and then make sure it doesn't happen again. I mean, that's what people want to know. That's what makes people feel more secure and safer. They want to know why something happened and how it's not going to happen again.
What we're seeing instead right now from the press secretary, as you mentioned, is that this is a reporter who doesn't like Trump. This is a hoax. A lot of the same language of just fake news, fake news.
Well, that's what they do. That's what they do. If anyone is even remotely critical of the administration, they will bar that person as fake news and try to sideline them. I mean, we've seen that time and time again with the president. And people do make mistakes, but the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the State, and so forth, National Security Advisor, should all know better. This was sensitive information, likely classified information, and Secretary Hegseth had very little national security experience coming into this position. And so it really makes people wonder about the incompetence level that is happening in terms of the conversation that is happening about talking about airstrikes before they happen. And that reporter responsibly backed out of the text conversation. If that was someone else that was added to the conversation, if it got into the hands of the Russians or the Chinese, we'd be having a very different conversation today. So we are lucky that the reporter backed himself out and that they now know about this. But this sort of level of incompetence cannot be happening when we are dealing with our national security.
Do you think someone needs to resign?
I think if this was a staff level position, somebody would be forced to resign or would be fired. But because they're some of the top lieutenants of the president, I think he will have a difficulty in firing some of his own secretaries.
Well, a few things. Secretary Hegseth, I do agree, has not had as much experience in this particular arena. But Mr. Waltz has. I mean, he is a multiple Bronze Star winner, Armed Forces. You know, he has that knowledge. So I'm very curious to hear, when the investigation goes on, why he thought it was safe to do that. Because, I mean, he has that job because he knows what he's talking about. He has a lot of experience, as opposed to Secretary Hegseth.
Serious guy.
Very serious guy. You know, the other thing is, let's be honest, the press secretary is covering for the president right now, just like the press secretary for Biden covered for the fact that he basically couldn't put one foot in front of the other. All right? So let's, you know, that's not unique to this president in any way, shape, or form.
They want to move beyond it. They want to move beyond it. And what will be interesting, because this is playing out in real time, is how does this unfold in the coming hours or days? This is a major issue. And so, of course, the administration is going to try to downplay it and move beyond it. But this is very concerning. And so we will have to come back and see where this all lands in the coming days.
So, keeping with some of the White House changes, but a different topic, we have heard about dismantling the Department of Education. We've talked about this on this program. I do want to encourage people, you can watch all of the previous episodes on the WFSB YouTube channel. They're all right there, or WFSB.com. Just click on local news and Capitol Rundown's right there if you don't get to see us live. But moving on to Medicaid, this is something that both sides support, protecting Social Security and, to a certain extent, Medicaid. And both sides are saying that you can't touch Medicaid. The Republicans have, President himself has said over and over again, this is not going to affect our cuts, our drastic changes with DOGE. Medicaid is safe. Jimmy, you have concern. You're shaking your head right now. You say that that's impossible. Can you elaborate?
Yes. So I know that is what the president says, but in the budget, it directs the committees of jurisdiction in Congress to go ahead and take out $880 billion of cuts over the next 10 years. And the committee that it gives that charge to is the very committee that deals with Medicaid. How much is Medicaid? About $880 billion. So while some Republicans may say, no, we're not going to touch Medicaid, you have to look at their blueprint. You have to look at the budget they pass that directs the committees in Congress, which are led by Republicans. Republicans have the United States Congress, the House and the Senate, to take away $880 billion in Medicaid. And again, this is not about let's find some efficiencies. This is about gutting the programs that are beneficial to about 1 million people right here in Connecticut, whether it's pregnant women, children, the elderly, the disabled, or the vulnerable, who count on these programs, and without these programs would be at serious risk of their own livelihoods and their health. It's about seeing doctors, having home care. We need programs like Medicaid, and we should not be gutting them. You know, time and time again, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are slashing these sorts of programs that people count on. They're not trying to find some small efficiencies, but rather are going after the very programs that people benefit from. They seem to never cut the programs that help the billionaires or tax cuts for billionaires, but they go again and again to the programs that affect people in their everyday lives.
Themis, is Medicaid something that even Republicans don't want to touch? Or we hear about a lot of waste and maybe people getting handouts. What do you think?
We do hear about a lot of waste, and 15 years ago when the Affordable Care Act was put in place, that was like one of the biggest expansions of Medicaid. It was 30 million expanded on Medicaid. And Medicaid is, 40% of all pregnancies are covered by Medicaid. You know, you have 5 of 8 people in nursing homes, Medicaid. But 70% of Medicaid funding is from the federal government. And so the problem is, people will argue, you know, Medicaid is actually the most cost efficient because it's got such low reimbursement rates, whereas private providers keep going up. And, you know, we can tell you as sitting on a local hospital board, Griffin Hospital in Derby, that we struggle, right? The rural areas, lower income areas really struggle because the Medicaid reimbursement rates are so low to doctors and they must take them. So what happens is, when those rates are low, the private provider rates become higher because you have to make that up somehow, or you can't stay in business. And so Medicaid is certainly very important. Now, I've said it before, and I think I'm probably going to keep saying it. You know, government efficiency, those two words don't usually go together, and we need a scalpel, not a hatchet, to limit things. But when we're taking care of people with mental health and developmentally disabled people, pregnancies, all of that, we have to make sure that we're not hurting the people that the program was set up to help in the first place.
Do you think that we can trust the White House right now and other Republicans who say Medicaid is safe?
As far as politicians go, Republican or Democrat, I think we should all believe, trust, but verify until we're proven wrong. But the fact is, we have to continuously fight for the things that we believe in. Citizens have to continuously talk to their congressmen, their senators, their state reps, their state senators about things that are important to them. Because that's who we, as elected officials, when I was one, that's who we listen to when we move forward.
So these things that are going around, and I see them as a journalist, I don't participate because we're nonpartisan, but change.orgs or 5 calls where it's showing you how to easily call. People are asking all the time, how do I make change? You know, however you feel about the presidential election, people want their voices heard. So I guess that's some good information for those of you watching, that actually calling your local reps, local senators, local this really makes a difference. Yes. Because then they're like, hey, I want to get elected, and my people are saying this.
You know, and I will also say that when we would talk to lobbyists, and they would come in and talk to us about issues, which are certainly, lobbyists have a very important role in government. But I always wanted to have somebody from my district or somebody from Connecticut in my office talking to me about it. So when I can put a name and a face with an issue, it becomes real to you.
Yeah.
Because there's 8 million issues that come across your desk.
Right.
But when I know that it's, Mrs. Smith from down the street and she's having trouble getting her prescription coverage, like, that matters to me. It matters when I know and I can put a name to a face. So people shouldn't think that, when they contact it makes no difference, because it actually does.
Right. No, it makes a big difference. And people should be reaching out to their members of Congress and reaching out to their elected officials to see where they stand on these issues. I mean, our members of Congress in Connecticut voted in the right way to protect Medicaid through the budget process. But if people have friends and family in other states, to look at those representatives and ask them, are they voting to support Medicaid, or are they voting with Donald Trump?
So before we move on to the next topic, let me just ask, there were Democrats who were upset with Chuck Schumer, who said, if you're a Democrat right now and you're upset with some of the aggressive agenda items of the Trump administration, you need to be standing up. Others saying, no, they got to work with them. What's your thought on that?
People want a fight right now. People want to make sure that we are fighting for working people, and so our congressional delegation didn't support the budget. There should have been more negotiation to make sure that even in a tough negotiation where Republicans have the House and the Senate, there was probably more that we could do to fight for working people. And so, a lot of folks were disappointed by Senator Schumer's budget vote, which allowed Donald Trump to really get what he wanted through the budget process. It's difficult because you also do not want to see a government shutdown, but what I am seeing, the energy out there, is that people want to somehow stop this, and that's difficult when the Republicans do have the White House, the House, and the Senate, but people want to show that there is a fight, there is an appetite. What Donald Trump is doing is not popular, and we need to show that we need to do more for working class families and not the Elon Musks who are providing tax breaks to billionaires but cutting the very programs that working families count on. And so you're seeing this energy where people want to see more from the Democratic Party. They want to see more fight. And so Chuck Schumer didn't, inspire many in that, and it's difficult because you want to keep government open, and we can't fight 10 fights a day. We have to choose where we're going to fight. I think to the Medicaid issue, this is one that we can win on. We can mobilize in Republican districts, and we can keep Medicaid, and we can save lives through doing that. It's about where are we bringing the fight to, and then doing all that we can and having people speak up. People want to participate in this process. They want to be more involved, and they want to know how they can help stop some of the cuts that Donald Trump is making.
All right, Themis, I'll let you have a quick response, but just, do you think Republicans are not happy with what's happening, or you also hear the opinion that, hey, we're finally going to get things done that need to get done? Well,
I don't really find myself often in the position of defending Senator Schumer, and I'm not going to defend his position one way or the other, but I will say, as somebody who lived in the minority party in a legislature for a very long time, you have to do a lot of things that people in your district may not like that you're doing, because you have to get things done. Because if you put your foot down every single time and say, nope, it's not my budget, so I'm not supporting it, or no, it's not my issue, so I'm not supporting it, the majority is the majority by definition of the name, and they can do what they want to do. And in this particular case, they have the president and the House and the Senate. So you either have to be part of the conversation and be understood as somebody who is at least willing to negotiate on things, and then get some things you want, or stamp your feet and take your toys and leave the sandbox. And I think that's what he was doing. I also think he miscalculated what was going on in the House, to be quite honest. I really think that he didn't think that the House was going to end up the way it ended up.
Right, the House was not in support of the budget.
I think that's what ended up happening.
To Themis, when she was Republican leader, know your power.
Yeah.
So you have negotiating power. Yeah. And so people were not very pleased that 12 hours after Chuck Schumer said he would not support it, was then supporting it. So you have to know your power when you're in the minority, and you have to negotiate, and you have to get to a better product. And that doesn't mean just saying, okay, but what can we get through this negotiating process? And so there is power in the minority.
All right. We're moving on to the Tesla protests, because if we're talking about people making their voices heard, we are, a lot of people in Connecticut drive Teslas, and in fact, Themis, you're a Republican. You have a Tesla. Third one.
I had a Prius once, too.
Anyway, this is perhaps a movement. I don't know if it's getting widespread, but we're certainly seeing about it, and lots of incredible video of people literally attacking Tesla cars, Tesla dealerships as some sort of way of, I guess, voicing their frustration or getting noticed. What do you think about this, Themis?
Well, I look over my shoulder a little bit now when I get out of the car, I'll be honest with you, or when I get back in my car. I think if you are against Elon Musk and what he's doing, you have every right to do that. As, again, scalpel, not a hatchet, when in government efficiency and government bureaucracy. Obviously, too much of all of that, but you don't want to hurt people on the way through there. But to go after people that bought a car because it's his company, okay, don't buy your car from him. But now you're going to hurt other people. There was also some website. I got a text Monday morning from people saying my mother, and I don't know why my mother, because my mother never had the car, it was my car, was on some website with her name and phone number and address and all this stuff.
Wow.
That they had done it all over the country.
Of people to target?
That have Teslas.
Wow.
Tesla owners. I mean, you know, back to the don't hate the player, hate the game routine.
Mm-hmm. And Jimmy, what do you think of, it seems...
Did I say that backwards? Maybe. I don't know.
We know what you meant.
I know.
They're saying you got it right. Okay.
Thank you.
So it reminds me of, you know, in a much more extreme version where people being upset about healthcare and the United Healthcare CEO was murdered. But if you have innocent people getting hurt or their cars getting hurt or Tesla dealerships, but at the same time, it seems like you have a very frustrated demographic that's trying to get heard.
Yeah, people are very frustrated, but it's never an excuse for any sort of violence. And we have seen this in many different ways in a bipartisan way. We should never be violent. We don't need to make our points through violence. We can make our points at the ballot box, by volunteering, by supporting good candidates, by making calls to your elected officials, to members of Congress. I always say, as I'm talking to different groups and to Democratic groups, the rallying is good. The rallying should be peaceful, but the rallying should also be purposeful. What are we getting at? What is the action? Are we asking people to knock on doors or make phone calls? What are we doing together to make sure that we actually have some sort of action steps to make progress on what we care about?
So finally, I just want to switch in that Themis, Klarides, you just got back from the White House. You were celebrating Greek Easter.
Greek Independence Day.
Greek Independence Day.
March 25th,
okay.
Yes.
So you were there. You saw President Trump. You saw people of the administration. What was that like? What was the mood? It would happen. You were there just, I mean, you were with the president, I guess, maybe an hour before the text leak was breaking?
Did they text you?
I mean, I got no text, and I have Signal. But, you know, Greeks get together, Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated. Nobody cared at that moment who was Republican, who was Democrat. We feel very strongly about our ethnicity and our heritage. And, you know, this is commemorating March 25th, where Greeks fled, which at the time was Asia Minor, because they were going to be killed if they didn't leave. And, you know, my grandparents did that, and many people's grandparents, great-grandparents, parents did that, and they're there to honor that. We always have a Greek Independence Day ceremony at the state capitol. You know, people do it all over the country, and it was just nice to be there and be with fellow Greeks, knowing that we're really proud of our heritage and where we came from.
Yeah. And the president at that moment, everyone seemed happy and everyone was getting along from both sides of the aisle?
I mean, he made a little speech, and he said what he said. He said all the right things. You know, we're here. The Archbishop was there, you know, and he was speaking with him, and you know, I mean, these are days.
You were in the room where it happened, so we just want to know what it felt like.
These are days when politics at least gets put to the side for a few minutes, and we're at least honoring, you know, our great immigrant heritage in this country, whether it's Greek or anything else. And now we all got here some way, and we're lucky to have gotten here because of the people that came before us.
All right. Well, Jimmy, I know you're not going to disagree with that part.
No, you're here.
All right. So we're out of time for today for the Capitol Rundown. I want to encourage everyone, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here with our insiders, please make sure that you're following us on social media. We've got Jimmy Tickey, Themis, Klarides, and me, Kara Sundlin. Again, you can go to WFSB.com, click on local news, and you'll find our show, Capitol Rundown, right under it. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you at 4.